Good morning, class.
Good morning, ma'am.
Okay. This morning we're going to have as topic the wonder that is zero. Did you ever wonder about zero? Did zero ever give you any curiosity? Did it make you think about it in any way, like you did maybe the number 1, the number 2, the number 3? No? Sometimes, but not as much as the other numbers. Why is that so about zero? Why does zero not cause much wonder when in fact it is a wonderful number? I'll take a few minutes to show you why zero indeed is worth our wonder. Even learned people such as Alfred North Whitehead declare that the point about zero is that we do not need to use it in the operations of daily life. For example, no one goes out to buy zero fish. It is in a way the most civilized of all the cardinals, and its use is only forced on us by the needs of cultivated modes of thought. So said Mr. Whitehead. Okay. So what does that mean? Instead of saying that zero has no cause to be studied, what in fact is over there, right, is that zero actually is only thought of by the cultivated, by the educated. Why do you think so? Every day we don't really think of buying zero this. We don't really think of doing zero that. You want to do something, you want to buy something, and usually it's never in quantity something that amounts to zero. But in fact, zero figures in our speech a lot of the time. And therefore, I think, I believe, and I would like you to believe as well, that zero indeed has definite purpose. At least in our speech. Can you think of some phrases which involve the word zero? Yes, Hector.
Okay, sub-zero, which means beyond the freezing point.
Sub-zero, which means below zero. That's another reference. You already have zero, and you're referring to something which is even below zero, right? But first of all, where is zero as a reference? So that you can refer to something as sub-zero. You refer to temperature as below zero or above zero. Okay. Any other phrase? Ezel?
Zero knowledge.
Zero knowledge. What do we mean by zero knowledge? Like you come and sit in class, I give you a talk, and then if we assume there is zero knowledge, and that means zero means nothing at all to begin with. So what I'm going to talk about is supposed to be totally new. So zero means some absence, right? How about, let's say this, 0 hour. My parents usually use that. They tell me, why are you studying tonight when tomorrow is already your exam? Why do you wait until 0 hour? Or you need something tomorrow, why do you buy tonight? If you had known that you need that something weeks ago, you needed that, you knew weeks ago that you need that something, then why did you not do it earlier? Why wait until? Zero. Which means that there is no time anymore, right? What do we mean by zeroing in? We're zeroing in on the target. Right? You watch a movie, there are spies going after a target, and they say we're zeroing in. You're solving a math problem, and then someone asks you, do you have the solution? In a while, I'm zeroing in on the solution. Yes? You are, GJ?
Approaching it.
Approaching the solution. What does that mean about distance? The distance to get to the target is vanishing. It's almost zero. I am almost there. Okay? How about zeroing out? You do that a lot in math, right? You have an equation, you have you're supposed to do some cancellation.
Zero.
You cancel, and you say you zero out. When you zero out, that means the quantities disappear. They're not there anymore, right? How about this? I hear that a lot. Let's go back to solving a math problem. Someone says, how are you? I thought you were zeroing in on the solution. No, I did a bit of a mistake. Now I am? Back to zero. Means? You're back to the? Back to the start. Back to the very first step. As if everything you did was nothing. No progress. So this is the absence of any progress. This is the absence of time. This is the absence of distance. This is the absence of quantity. And I know this is a recent phrase. Okay? It became popularized in 911. Okay, class, how about the phrase ground zero? How many of you are familiar with a place called ground zero? You heard of that? Jo Andrea?
Yes, it is the place where the Twin Tower used to stand.
Okay, we're referring to New York, right? Ground zero was what they popularly refer to as the land where, or that piece, or the remains of the two towers that fell on 911. Okay? So ground zero does not only refer to that particular plot. It refers to any plot of land where buildings used to stand. And in particular, that means the buildings disappeared not just by being demolished, but because somehow they disappeared due to some explosion. And what remains, that hole or that piece of land or whatever remained, is called ground zero. So where that building was, there's nothing anymore. And it's called ground zero. I know you have several more phrases, like, referring to towers and airplanes. When you say zero visibility, you maneuver through a fog. You say visibility is zero, right? You remember the accidents of small planes in Baguio. They say, in the afternoon, the planes are not advised to take off because visibility is zero, right? You have some diet soft drinks these days, okay? And some of them are labeled blank, zero. That means there is no sugar. That's the absence of sugar. Okay, so class, I'm sure there are a lot more phrases we use using zero. And they really serve a purpose. The use of zero is there because of the clear purpose that zero serves. It means the absence of something, the vanishing or disappearance of something, right? Or zero knowledge, like you mentioned, zeroing in on something. Let's see if we can zero in on our purpose for this morning. And I will show you how zero came into the picture in the first place. Why is zero such a major player in mathematics when in everyday life, like referred to earlier, doesn't really seem to serve much purpose? Okay, but the purpose is introduced one morning when a mathematician by the name of René Descartes. Right? René Descartes figures there must be some way of representing symbolically or analytically the position of a point on some space or a point in space. Okay, class, we have René Descartes up there, and it is said that he is responsible for putting zero in the picture analytically or graphically, if you like. How was he able to do that? He started out without thinking of zero at all. They say he was a sickly child. And as a sickly child, he was a bit favored by his parents. How do you think he was favored? Right? For example, one of you is a sickly child. How do you think you were favored growing up? Would you expect to be asked to do chores? No? Orly, would you wake up early and do chores and do hard work? You won't, right? What would your mother or parents prefer that you do if you were sickly? Just
rest.
GJ, just
Take a rest.
just rest. In particular, maybe just stay in bed. Okay, so think of young Descartes lying in bed, possibly until noon, doing nothing but viewing the ceiling. He is happy that way because he just thinks about life, thinks about math, thinks about reality, whatever goes on in his mind. He's a great philosopher and mathematician. Okay, but then something comes in. If you think zero is insignificant, to Descartes, this is something that starts out insignificant. It destroys his focus, it destroys his concentration, much like it would probably do yours if it came in right now. Right? Descartes saw a fly. And wherever the fly landed, let's say on the ceiling, on one of the walls, initially, he was very bothered. He'd say, this fly is destroying my focus. But then again, he focuses on the fly itself. And there is a story about Descartes and the fly, where Descartes now focuses on the fly. And he says, wherever that fly lands, I should be able to find a unique representation of his location. Okay. So how can I say that the fly is here and distinguish from the position of the fly over here? More in particular, how would I say that the fly started out over there? So that's a story about Descartes and the fly, and how that fly, which initially destroyed his focus. Okay, class? So from this ceiling, Descartes creates a coordinate system. And it indeed is named after him. You know it as the Cartesian coordinate system. Okay? Now, for our purposes this morning, what is the role of zero? Okay? The role of zero in the Cartesian coordinate system, whether you take it as one real line, or the Cartesian plane, or three-dimensional space like this, zero has a very definite role. If I ask you where zero is, you'd point to the origin. Indeed, it is where the axes are going to intersect. And as one line, if you have one line like this, it separates the negative from the positive. Correct. If you have something two-dimensional, like just the x-axis and the y-axis, what you have is, let's say this zero, meaning y equals 0, separates the negative half from the positive half of the plane. And if you have a three-dimensional space, then the origin, taken with the positive parts of the three axes, will give you what is known as the first quadrant. So it separates space very effectively and very efficiently. Now, if I'm going to concentrate on two-dimensional space, okay, so the purpose of the Cartesian coordinate system is for you to label points, such as this one, any point on space, any point on a line, any point on a plane. As long as you have, okay, an ordered pair for the Cartesian plane. So in particular, if we're going to concentrate on a two-dimensional coordinate system, we have the Cartesian plane, and each point is given a unique pair of coordinates. This ordered pair will tell you, given the first coordinate, how far this is from the y-axis, right, x, and the second coordinate will tell you the distance from the x-axis. Okay, so this center is very important because that's where everything starts and that's where everything gets divided into compartments. That's why you know that this is the first quadrant, because aside from the 0 coordinates, everything here is positive. Over here, you're to the left of x, so you know the first one is negative, the second one is positive, and so on. You can easily name the quadrants. You know the positives and the negatives because of 0. And you call this the positive half plane, the negative half plane, a first quadrant compared to the other quadrants. And for a one-dimensional system, you have 0 over here. Then you have the positives, and you have the negatives. So you'd think 0 only plays a positional role. When you look at the graph, when you look at the Cartesian coordinate system and you are asked for 0, then sometimes you'd go automatically to the origin. Or where is x equal to 0? You'd go to the y-axis and say this is where all x coordinates are 0. You go to the x-axis. This is where all y coordinates are equal to 0. But that is not the only use of zeros when you look at things graphically.